All right, everybody. How you doing? My name is Kyle, and this is the Conservative Take Top 3 show. Today, we have two guests. We have Jackie and we have Alexis online waiting. I'm going to bring Jackie in right now.
Hey, how are you? Hola.
How you doing, Jackie?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. So how's your day?
Pretty good. Looking forward to celebrating America this weekend.
How's your day going?
My day is going good.
Only if you're in blue.
There you are.
Yeah. So I think personally, I'm looking forward. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool.
You know,
I think I'm looking forward to it, but
they're going to close down a lot of celebrations. In California, they're closing the beaches just for the holiday weekend. Makes no sense.
And then Miami, they started in Miami as well.
Well, Miami really does have a serious issue down there as far as the corona is, but why are you closing it for the weekend? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So I brought Alexis on. Alexis, how you doing?
Hello.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. How are you?
Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure if my I'm using some new earbuds, so I wasn't sure if it was on.
Yeah, so we're just talking about the beaches being closed for the Independence Day.
And I was gonna type in the chat box that California hasn't made sense, since Reagan. So it doesn't surprise me that they're making bad decisions.
That's true. That's true. And you notice no one's really talking about the protesters causing the rise. The riots and the protesters is increasing the numbers. No one's saying that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I actually saw in a video today someone said they read from an article in a Colorado Colorado newspaper that said the BLM protests are actually helping the number of COVID cases because it's causing more people to stay home. I was like, no. Like, even if that factually was true, that's like saying, well, when the brown shirts marched in the street, it helped because everybody stayed inside for fear of being knocked in the head by their batons. It's like, wait a minute.
Insanity.
Yeah.
And I just can't, the fact that they even wrote that article, I thought, wow, like they've lost their minds. But then again, the White House press secretary actually got asked the question, is Trump happy that the South lost, or did he wish the South would have won the Civil War? So if reporters are that insane, why would it surprise me that they would write an article like that?
Trump is a New Yorker.
Things. It's literally a pathology,
Trump is a New Yorker through and through. I think his parents were, where was their nationality?
I think he's German, like German Scottish.
Yeah.
Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, that's about as northern as you're going to get.
Please. If it's not good for business, he's not for it. So, I mean, that's really what counts.
Yeah, I did a live stream on the mentality of the northern people, and it was basically a free labor society, just like Trump and their family. It was like work hard, be frivolous, and then you can move your way up with just your labor. So it doesn't make any sense. The whole narrative just makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
So anyway, let's get started. So this is the top 3 show. If you're just joining us now, we got a lot of new subscribers over the past few days. This is the top 3 show where we take 3 topics. We typically go with 1 or 2 with 2 people, and then we do a third one as a collaborative. This one, as you can tell by the thumbnail, is going to be a fun topic because we're dealing with the Ken and Karen de Blasio and the Uncle Tom, which I really want to get into that. That was a film that came out, independent film, that all 3 of us have seen. Jackie's seen it, I think, 3 times. And I really want to get into that, but I really want to just jump into this first one here. And we're talking about the de Blasio story. And so, Jackie and Alexis, you may have heard this, but as you know, New York has had a lot of murders recently. In fact, I'll put this on the screen here. This is your mayor. Is this where you guys are from? Aren't you from New York, both of you guys?
Yeah.
So de Blasio is looking to cut the budget by $1 billion. And I'm going to read this. I'm not going to read the whole article here, but it says here, this is from Unbiased America. It says that Mayor de Blasio agrees to cut $1 billion from New York police budget, despite a 100% increase in murders over the last month. It says here that it's announced that this $1 billion cut from the New York Police Department 2001 funding. The mayor said that among those things, the entire July class of more than 1,000 new recruits will be canceled. What do you guys think about that? You want to talk? You want to start, Alexis? Or you want to, or just jump in?
Well, as a person who was,
I'm
a former New Yorker now. I've only been out 2 months, but I do have a lot of friends on the police force that retired from the police force, and of course, everybody's just sickened. But I want to say something. So I was looking, researching this a bit. So in April, de Blasio cut $6 billion from the budget. He said he had to do it because of COVID and the loss of the tax revenue. And guess what all the programs he cut were? The pools. Apparently it cost $12 million to keep the pools open in New York City for 3 months, which I think is outrageous. He already cut he pushed the April cadet class to July. Now he cut it. His wife's mental health initiative Thrive, which we know how many millions of dollars disappeared that she can't account for. So he had already cut the summer youth jobs program, the community arts program. In other words, he cut all these things that are supposed to make the youth stronger, and these programs that keep the kids off the street and keeps them out of gangs. He already made those cuts. So now we already have an inflamed city, and now he's going to cut the police too. He has made the biggest mess in the world. And if you go back to when Dinkins was mayor, same kind of situation. The murder rate was so high. The only thing I'm hoping is, what I think is going to happen is maybe we'll get a Republican mayor out of it, because that's the only thing that's going to help New York City at this point. It is just such a hot mess.
That's typically what's happening with, you look at California, we had the recall back in the early 2000s. They bring in a Republican to fix the mess, and they never learned the lesson. And then I think that's when Arnold Schwarzenegger got in. But you're right, that's when Giuliani came in. Was he a Republican when he came in? Yeah. He was at that point. Okay, so they do that to get the fiscal conservative in to fix the mess up, and then they mess it up again after they leave.
Unbelievable. Alexis, you're a former New Yorker.
I think she dropped off. I think she cut. I'm waiting for her to get back on again.
Okay.
But I'll go and read the rest of the article. It says, despite the fact that there have been twice as many murders this past month as the same period last year, twice the amount of murders. She's coming on. And 24% increase in shooting incidents this far this year. And that, I'm bringing Alexis on right now. Alexis, are you there? Are you there, Alexis?
This is like a work Zoom meeting.
I'm here. It was cutting out really badly.
Yeah, that's all.
I was just saying it's cutting out really badly, so I thought maybe I could refresh or something.
So there was 35 shootings this weekend in New York.
Did you ask me a question? I didn't hear it.
The question was, Jeff, your input on the de Blasio cutting all the programs, summer programs, and the fact that whenever there's a situation where the Democrats come in and make a mess, they bring in a Giuliani or Schwarzenegger in California to fix the mess, and then they fix it. They end up bringing another Democrat in to mess it up again.
I think she has connection problems.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I was going to say was New York has numbers like Chicago right now. I mean, almost 35 people shot this weekend. And one of my friends who's an active policeman sent me the video of the police got called to shots fired. And when they got there, the protesters in the street just battered their vehicle with bottles and garbage and trash. I mean, it went on. And I saw actually 4 or 5 different policemen posts. They've never seen anything like this in their 30-year career in New York City. I mean, it's shameful.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any kind of respect for authority. I mean, they're just I don't know the word I want look for is brazen or just I don't know. They have no respect or no regard for the authorities. Like they just have no qualms from going in there and just.
It's like a long temper tantrum is what this is. It's just the longest temper tantrum in the world. I saw a video of, the statue of Teddy Roosevelt outside the Museum of Natural History, and they had this.
In Oyster Bay or
no, in New York City. It's the famous one that was in the movies, that big Museum of Natural History, and they had a kid.
Oh yeah.
They had a kid standing outside. It said American University. So he goes to American University, which costs $67,000 a year to go there. And he's screaming at the people that were against removing the statue, telling them they have white privilege. A bunch of working people in New York that surrounded the statue to protest it being taken down. These are just, in addition to Antifa, these are just rich white kids, like rebels without a clue, that just want to come out in the street and make noise.
And then you have. I'm sorry. We just got hold on, something's happening here. Let me just put this up on the screen here. Looks like we got a supporter gave $20 actually from Kyle Thompson, super chat. So thank you for that, Thompson. If you have a question, shoot in. We really appreciate any support. We don't ask for money, but obviously we will take it. Any bit helps to help us to do these things. We're doing it really to get our president elected and get Republicans elected, to get sanity back to our country. So I appreciate the $20. That's awesome. And Betty Boop, I see you online there. So thank you so much, everybody. So sorry I cut you off, Jack. I had to jump in there for that.
Well, I was finished anyway. Well, I'll take up the whole show talking about New York.
So anyway, I may be popping some things on the screen here as we go. I'm gonna put this on the screen here. Can you guys see that? Okay, it says Betty Wood says also that video too. The rich kid was verbally abusive to an elderly woman, and she let him have it.
She let him have it. She was in his face, pointing her finger, and there was a man trying to protect her. And she now she had gray hair, right? Yeah,
and she was fearless, dude. I do remember that. That was an awesome video. I did see that.
I loved it. We need more people like her speaking up.
So let me put that up here. That's it from Kyle Thompson. Kyle Thompson, thank you so much. That's great. That's awesome. So we're trying to help this country, man, get back on this feet, man. This is all about. We never asked for a dime on this channel, not one dime. So, but I do appreciate that. So do you want Alex? Are you still there? You having problems still? Okay, I think she's having some problems. So
I do too.
It may just be. I'm sorry, you do too.
No, I'm saying I think she's having problems as well.
Okay, well, it may just be me and you, Jackie. I think we can handle it, right?
Of course.
But if you can hear us, Alexis, whatever, just jump in when you can. So, anyway, so let's move on to the next subject. Let's go on to let's see here. Let's go into the Ken and Karen show. How about that?
For sure.
That story essentially basically is in St. Louis, and you had, I don't even know their names. Do you know their names?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I looked them up. They're Ken and Karen. I mean, no, that's not their real names. Their name is McCloskey, is their last name, and they are actually personal injury lawyers.
Personal injury lawyers. Were they about to cause some personal injury?
Okay.
Yeah. So this article is from Unbiased America again. I'm just gonna read this quick. Just give everybody who hasn't, if you've been under a rock for the past few days, just what happened here. So a couple was seen pointing firearms at hundreds of protesters who broke into their private neighborhood. And I'm gonna show a picture of their house and the vicinity where they were. St. Louis police say that they were investigating a video of the couple seen pointing guns at protesters who broke into their private neighborhood. If you look at the thumbnail of this video, you'll see that image. It says here that the incident took place yesterday afternoon when hundreds of demonstrators entered the private neighborhood where St. Louis Mayor Lytle Kruston lives. Video which went viral on social media showed the couple, a 63-year-old man. He looked pretty good for 63-year-old.
Yeah, and she's in her 60s too.
Yeah, they're both 63 years old. She had a pistol, and they were yelling at the protesters, and they weren't backing down. So let's take a look at the image of their estate. So this is their neighborhood. So the bottom icon there is where that gate was, the private gate, the guard shack was, and that's the entrance to their property. From what I understand from the video, that was damaged, and
it was broken through.
Yep. So if you go straight up from there to the left, you see that's where the protesters were. If you see my mouse, I don't know if you can see it or not, where the protesters were, and then right there to the right of that, upper right of that, is where the armed couple stood, and their house is huge. And I told someone online, I said, well, they were trying to say, well, they shouldn't have done that. I'm like, well, yeah, well, it wasn't like they had anything to protect. Like they just had a little trailer park they were trying to protect, nothing big, right? No, inside the house is like a museum. So, and there's just, I guess those two in the house. And so what are your thoughts on that?
They run their business out of there. And the interesting thing is, first of all, I just want to say, when I tried to look up, like I wanted to hear some serious information. Like, what are the gun laws in St. Louis? Like, what charges? Are they allowed to have the rifle? And honestly, even on DuckDuckGo, the first 25 articles they're getting slammed. They are getting slammed, made fun of, hilarious memes, racism, white privilege. I mean, you can't even find an accurate news story about what the implications are. But they're personal injury lawyers. And the funny thing is their office is in that house, which is weird. I don't know if I'd want people coming in and out of my house like that. But the whole media story is innocent, lovely protesters that were on their way to the mayor's house, and they were pointing the gun at them, which I wouldn't take that at all. I thought they were protecting their property. And you know darn well, if they hadn't been out there, somebody would have certainly ran up and knocked their stuff down or tried to bust up their outside. And the funny thing is, so they have a lawyer who came out and said they are longtime civil rights advocates and support the message of the Black Lives Matter movement. Their actions were born solely out of fear and apprehension. Well, who wouldn't be? Have you watched television? Have you seen, that poor lady in upstate New York that got beaten with a board, and then that other guy that got crumpled up on the sidewalk? Not to mention the police captain retiree that was shot in the head trying to stop people from looting the pawn shop. I mean, what? They act like, why in the world would they do that? They're crazy. White privilege. There's perfect logical reasons for them to take the actions that they did. I would have shot a couple bullets in the air just to give a warning.
Yeah, and of course, if they had done that, then who knows what they would have done with local ordinance laws and discharging a firearm. But they were on their property. Obviously, within that picture, you can see they were inside the grounds, and like you just said, they had every right to defend themselves because they don't know, based on what's going on in history, you don't know what they could have done. They're burning down. If they're going to burn down a police district, come on. Yeah. Are they going to think they can worry about burning down a house? I even heard, and I don't know if this is true, maybe you can corroborate this, but I heard they threatened her with rape. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that, but they were all, they were yelling out and catcalling them. And then you'd see like a smarter person pulling the protester away and saying, come on. And another funny thing is they were on their way to the mayor's house. So look where the mayor lives, to protest because the mayor read the names and the addresses on either, some kind of TV, some kind of broadcast of everyone that wrote him and asked him to defund the police. What kind of insanity is that? I don't think you should dox anybody, even if they're right.
Yeah. So it makes sense now. So the mayor doxed them. They were mad at the mayor, and on the way to the mayor's house, they said, "Oh, this guy here."
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question before we get into the next topic. So that gate, is that gate for the entire community or just for the house?
It looks like it's a gate for the entire community.
Okay.
And they had to bust through, but how would anybody know what they were going through the neighborhood for?
Right. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And I can't understand why the people are against what they were doing. Now, obviously, he didn't hold the weapon very well. They were saying, well, maybe he shouldn't have had, because she had her finger on the trigger.
Yeah. She didn't look good.
She was not messing around. That's not something you should probably do. If they say when you put your finger on the trigger, you need to be firing. Right?
Everybody noted that. We love you, but take your finger off the trigger.
Yeah. If you know you're gonna fire, don't. Yeah. And he was holding the gun, I guess the AR-15, up by the barrel, not by the. Anyway, but whatever. Yeah. They were. You know what? More power to them.
I hope that they're supported. The only positive thing you hear about them is on Parler. Yesterday my stream was filled with support of them, but I would say they are not professional gunslingers at all.
Yes. Let me jump back. Let me put some comments up here from Betty. I'm going back to the first topic. She mentions comment. This is a good point that she made up. She says here that talking about the elderly lady. That was, yeah, I thought that was really good too. Because he was not going to let her get. Because when you watch the video, he was about to get in her face quickly. You remember that? And then the brother jumped in like, "Oh no, you don't."
I know that was good, and I didn't know who was on what side or whether he was there in a professional capacity, but he stepped right in there, and that was
he was on his side. He was a liberal too. I think.
Okay,
I think he was. Yeah, he was just like, you're like, dude, come on, man, seriously.
And Betty's right. That is a true picture of the American way, standing up for others. That's really how we are.
And this is the other one for the Ken and Karen. So,
did she? Wow, that's the mayor she's talking about, right?
I think so. Yeah. So, and then she mentions this here, I guess going back to the first one. So,
well, we got to get Betty Boop on. She knows what's up.
I know she's really helpful. So, yeah, if you want to come on with the show, as in on this side of the table, Betty, just let me know. Send me an IM or email me. Let me know. It'd be great. Cool. So, anything else you want to talk about this topic before we get into the other one? Yeah,
let's go to the other one.
Okay, so this is what we want to talk about, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna let Jackie kind of run this a little bit. This is a movie that I did a review on. It's one of my highest viewed film reviews I've ever done on any movie video really for my channel. I think it's the top 5, which isn't saying a lot, but it's over like 6,000 views, I think. And it's called.
Top 5.
Yeah, well, yeah, I will take it. It's the movie's called Uncle Tom, and it is a documentary. Produced by Larry Elder. I've spoken to their people on their side of the table, and we're trying to get something put together, but we'll see if that happens or not. And it's about the stories of various Black conservatives and about the so-called stigma of Uncle Tom. And so I want to just give it to Jackie to kind of tell me what her thoughts of it are, and I'll just talk about it as well, and we'll comment. So let me bring up the image here. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. I'm gonna bring up the image real quickly.
We'll have a conversation about it.
So that's the image of her right there, if you can see that. And so yeah, go ahead, Jackie. Let me know what you thought about the film.
Well, since I have watched it 4 times, I watched it 3 just because it was very interesting. Plus, I like to watch regular movies multiple times because I find that maybe I zoned out or whatever, and I missed a little part, and this is a thinker. So. Then the 4th time I watched it in anticipation of this discussion, because I wanted to make sure, that I had some things written down. There was a lot of information that I didn't know. Everything from Al Gore's father running that longest filibuster at the time in the history of Congress to block that.
Yes.
The thing about the welfare, it was Claude and Piven were the 2 sociologists that literally tried to break the bank by getting everyone enrolled in welfare. And what they thought was, because I actually had to research that a little bit, they thought if they got so many people in welfare, it would break the bank and cause a crisis in the government. And I think they were almost trying to do like a socialist or a communist takeover. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Break the bank and then have like a free society. So why anybody endorsed that or went along with that, I'm not really sure. I will say that some people in the movie I really didn't know, like Carol Swain, who, by the way, she's a beautiful human being. Like, I'm a straight woman, but I have to say, just the way she looks and the way she speaks and carries herself, it was very impressive. But I think that now that we've seen that, we have to stop and think, like, now what are we going to do? Because that's really what I'm thinking. Like, what are we going to do? I think that there has to be either a third party or a new wave, because the way this country is going to heal, I think, are the thoughts and ideas of Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder. There's so many young people coming out of there that are going to be, Alexis says, Carol Swain, she is awesome. There's so many young people that are starting to think differently that I think that we need a movement. Because it's not just for Black people, it's for America. I feel very strongly that we need to stop talking about color, almost period. If you had an article in the news about a policeman kneeling on somebody's neck and nobody ever said what color anybody was, we'd all be like, oh, that's terrible, and he should be arrested. But that would be the end of the story. But by injecting color into everything, it changes the whole dynamic, right? So my question is, what can we do to take the thoughts and ideas in that movie and move them forward?
Well, the first thing is to identify what the real narrative is in terms of who's really at guilt, because what the left wants to do is they want to tear this country down. And like you just said in your opening statement, and what we need to do is first get the education system to the point where we can actually talk about the real history of what happens. Because otherwise, when I talk to anyone who's Black about, particularly if it's Black, or even if they're white, about being a Republican, they'll say, well, how can you do this whenever? And I'll say, well, the Democrat Party had their history, and then they'll say that the party switched. All right. So then if I go through the situation of telling them that the parties didn't switch, and I can convincingly get them to the point where they back off of that, well, they'll say, the Southern strategy was part of it. And I say, well, no, Southern strategy wasn't part of it. There was no GOP targeted effort for white races to win over the South. That was not the case. They were trying to win over all of the South, and they just so happened to pick up some of the races, right? Because even the Democrats were trying to do the same thing. So it was a Southern strategy for both parties, and it was targeted on people who were who cared about national defense, low taxes, and patriotism. Because remember, this was a Cold War going on. People were worried about being nuked, so national defense was really strong. So people said, "Screw racism! I'm worried about being nuked by the Russians." So people forget that kind of stuff. And so, but then once you get past that, then they want to say, "Well, what about systemic racism?" They keep shifting the goalposts. And so that's the challenge, right? So now we're finally on, I think, the systemic racism part of it. We've kind of won those other two arguments, but the last one is the last one we got kicked the door down. And I think that's a more nuanced one, because it's you can't put a finger on it, you know. Thomas Sowell does a good job. Ben Shapiro has a good video out there as well. But again, it's kind of one of these kind of things, and really, it's a human heart issue. So I tried to answer your question, but I'm not sure if I can.
Well, I mean, really, it's a discussion. So first of all, I just want to say most people don't even know about the Southern strategy and even the party switch. All they know is like Republicans are racist and Democrats are trying to help poor people. But so then you have to think of like, how can we educate them? So first of all, the public school system is a big problem. It's a huge problem. I went to Quaker school, and of course, it was a little while ago, but it was, looking back on it, it was so liberal. It was really liberal. Right. So how can we start planting seeds? And I also think I had a discussion with some people last night, and just from talking about related subjects, I think a lot of people aren't ready to hear what needs to be said. So then you have to talk about, he does have one coming out in August. Well, his is Dinesh's movie about racism, or is it about Trump?
It's called The Trump Card.
So
it's about the.
Yeah, that's going to be about 5 shows, probably, Dinesh's movie. But so I think that personalities help a lot. I think Candace Owens brought a lot of people around. She is, she's a little angry, like to be a leader. I love her. But look at Carol Swain. I think Carol Swain would be an excellent speaker. And also, she's so dignified and calm and collected. I think that she would be a very good, because you have to start thinking about leaders that are going to get the message out. And I hate to say it, but run for public office. I mean, I know, like Larry Elder said, I'm not interested in politics, but he might be the granddaddy. And by the way, happy birthday to Thomas Sowell. Today is his 90th birthday.
But 90th birthday? He looks like he's 55.
You know how that goes. So what you have to, you have to take the movie and think, what are we going to do next? Because it's a great movie. A couple other things, when he talked about there's more illiterate people now, illiterate Black people, than there were 50 years after slavery. Like the number of people that could read within 50 years of slavery was astounding. The fact that children were more likely to be born under the roof with their biological parents in slavery than they are at this time. That's another atrocious thing. There's so many things that are going on now. And if I said that statistic about children born out of wedlock, or I don't want to even say wedlock, a man under the roof, people call that racist. I have a pretty good friend. She was my union rep when I worked at Rikers. and she was a Black woman. And she told me one time that she has never taken anybody to so many disciplinary hearings as she had to take me, because of course I struggle as a white person at Rikers, but that's a whole nother show. But she posted, why is the media always talking about Black on Black crime? 85% of crime for white people is white on white. But that's a ridiculous comparison. But I'm talking about a woman that's a registered nurse with a bachelor's degree, a thinking person. She's a good person. I worked with her all the time, and she comes out with a statement like that. Why don't we talk about white on white crime? I struggled all day whether to answer a post or not. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, even good people are so rigid and so deep in that groove. How do you get them out? You got to have personalities to bring them out. That's the only thing.
This is a controversial topic, but I think he has a point here. And this goes into the breakdown of the this goes. I'm sorry, I don't mean to just annoy your comment.
That is a great comment, because I started working in the prison system in 1991, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah, and that's these kind of topics that don't want to be put out there, but I'm going to say it because I think it's true. Because a lot of this comes from the crime bill from Biden, and unfortunately, it comes from the war on drugs under Reagan and so forth. But the deal with that is that, just like Kingface has, a guy who I did an interview with, said, look, they didn't force you to put that needle in your body. They didn't force you to take that drug. No one forced you to do any of that stuff. So there is some personal accountability in all of this. So there's a lot of blame that's spread around here. And I think what we don't ever talk about is the accountability of the people that are doing this stuff, right? And so back to your point, back to what you said about people being in the home. There's a statistic that I grew up with when I was a Black liberal back in college. And I had this book called Black Freedom Through Black Entrepreneurship. I got it upstairs. Robert Wallace is the author. And so in that book, every statistic in that book is negative towards Blacks, except for one. And that one is overwhelmingly exceeds over white people. And that's married Black couples that are together. Married Black couples, the median average income is very much higher. At least it was 91, higher than white people. And I thought that, I thought about it. My parents, I thought about people I knew about, and that's probably, anecdotally speaking, correct. And so, but it's really important for the nuclear family to be in the Black community more so, because that welfare state doesn't happen as easily, because the Black dad, I'm sorry, I had a Black dad. They're pretty tough. We don't mess around. You're home at 8:00, period. And I'm not trying to disparage anything, but culturally speaking, it's different, man. Night and day, man. You don't mess with your Black dad, man. I'm sorry.
No, well, old time Italian dads were exactly the same way. But
it could be white people too, but yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But I just wanted to say that when they were talking about welfare, women having babies, I know tons and tons of Black nurses that I worked with that are single women with children. It's not just like poor people do that. And I'm sure there's white ones too. It's just that I work in a field that I worked with a lot of Black people. Why do people, here's the thing, forget about everything else. It's really hard. I was a single mom, and my children's father declined to see his children for years. It's really hard. And I have 2 boys, and I knew, that's why I chose to live with extended family, because I knew that boys especially, I'm going to say it, they need a strong man to rein them in. I didn't date men because I knew what would happen with, I would bring man home or whatever, and he would discipline my kids. It would end up in a big fight, and it would cause confusion in my house. So I never brought men around to my children. I mean, I did date, but I didn't date in front of my children or bring anybody home or try to include them. And I lived with extended family, so there was my brother-in-law in the house. So you have to have that male balance. When I worked at Rikers, what I saw for the first time, and I worked in corrections since, I'm a nurse, worked in corrections since 1991, was scream fights between the inmates. Rikers is 65% female guards. And they're screaming at each other. There's no screaming in jailing. You know what I mean? You give an order and it's supposed to be obeyed. They're always screaming at each other, and they do not tolerate when a man steps to them and gives them a direct order. And it's because they're not used to having a man in their life, setting limits. White or black, I think that's true.
Is this the female guard you're talking about, or the prisoners?
I'm saying the female guards ran the jail by screaming at inmates. And when men
okay.
would step up and give them a direct order or set a limit, they freaked out. They couldn't tolerate it. And I'm saying that boys of all colors brought up without any male controlling them, setting limits, targeting behavior, there's going to be problems. And that's why the jails are full.
Yeah. That's it. We have a, and that's really what I would say systemic racism is all about. It's the policies that haven't been working for the past 70 years. And we can say like redlining was one of the big topic that was on that video that went around, that went viral, that it has like 2 million views about. It's called systemic racism.
Oh, redlining. Yeah, I know about that.
Yeah.
Right.
But redlining came right out of FDR and this New Deal, and that's when the Black community started to vote for Democrats because they were doing it in for money. It was a Faustian deal. They were getting in bed with the party of the Klan so they could have a better life financially. So they just had to weigh their options. And not everyone took that decision, but a lot of them did. And you start seeing the Black population starting voting Democrat from 1935 on to 1960, when at that point that King visit from JFK nailed it. That was the second wave. First wave was FDR. Second wave was Kennedy. And that's where we are right now. But all those policies up to that point have devastated the community. And I have one question, one stat I want to say that I saw today. This is from the New York Times, actually, from 2005. I got the article. If I can put it in a link here. Did you know that there are more free Africans that came over freely to America than were ever brought in bondage?
I did not know that. Well, they didn't have that in that article 1619.
But my point is that stat right there should put pause to everybody when it comes to reparations. It should put pause to. We should do a moratorium just on that one statement right there. Because
why don't you repeat it?
Okay, so I'll get the article. I'll put the link in here. It's from 2005, New York Times, or Washington Post, either one. I can't remember which one. It's a reputable. If you call them reputable. But at the time the article was written, that there was more free Africans have come to America on their own free will. That's the important thing. Than people that were brought over in bondage during the Middle Passage and slave trade.
They mean up until 2005 when they wrote the article, like they're counting,
well,
since they've been counting. Is that what they mean?
I would say since the
1800s, do they?
I'm sorry?
They don't mean in the 1800s. They mean since we've been counting people coming over, right? Up until 2005.
Yeah, I would say
right?
so. But the slave trade went all the way back to the 1600s, though. It went on for a while. So, I mean, I don't know. I haven't read the article, but I will put a link in the description for that.
Well, I actually, somebody posted a picture of a Black man that was supposed to be maybe the first person to own African slaves. And he actually went to court and won the case. And it was to do with a slave thought he had worked off his time, but he didn't. And he got the slave back. And that was a Black guy. And that was like in late 1600s. So, there's a lot of false information out there. And I think we know it, but I think what we have to do is get the word out. And I think we have to start thinking, like as a group, as a people, how are we going to get the word out? How are we going to get people to listen? I mean, that walk away, I told you, I looked today, it's 287. It was 240,000 people on the walk away page before the riot started.
How many?
It was 240,000. And this is just the page, the people that post, that join that Facebook page. So it's not everybody in the country. Now today it's up to 287. And he said he has 25,000 people waiting to be vetted because they read the profile and the statement before they put them on the page. Just in less than a month, in 3 weeks, they gained almost 50,000, and counting the waiting ones, that's 75,000.
Wow. So yeah, so they're having to vet people, sounds like, to get them in there. Or?
Yeah, well, I'm sure they do, or there could be trolls or whatever. But Brandon Straka said he has 25,000 waiting to come on. But they go through every profile. I mean, I think things are going to happen. So then the next question is, how can we get people to watch? I think the movie does it so well that I think better than you or I could do by talking to somebody. How can we get people to watch the movie? I tell everybody about it.
I think I should do another. We should probably do a formal discussion on it. Maybe outline it and go through the top point by point, and that way maybe I have a reference guide to someone watching the movie. I don't want to put in points of spoilers because it's not really a spoiler-like movie, but there is a narrative in there where it basically starts with Obama and ends with Obama, and I thought that was brilliant. You know, in the beginning, it brought him out as if how great his presidency was. And even Kingface said he even called him like a little god, you know, because the way he was looked at. And then at the end of the movie, you see the total contrast and where he was from the beginning of the film. He was bitter, he was mean, he was vindictive, and you know, it was really interesting how they did that. But the big go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Al Sharpton to the White House 70 times. That's all you need to know. End of story.
Al Sharpton?
Obama invited him to the White House over 70 times.
I think a good point on that Al Sharpton deal is the fact that that they mentioned the fact that Al Sharpton plays the role of the buffer Negro in the slave times. He was the one, and unfortunately, I hate to say it, a lot of times we're the pastors kept them in line, right? And they would.
Where's his church?
Oh, where is it? Well, you can go online and make a church like in 10 minutes.
2 words, Tawana Brawley. But there was another important point I wanted to make about Obama, and I'm going on record. I watched the videos of Jerome Wright, Reverend Jerome Wright, and Obama sitting in the pew, in 2007, and said, "This guy's no good. He's not the guy." Because I go to church every Sunday. I agree with almost everything my pastor says most of the time. And yay, Alexis, I hope so. And I knew for anybody to sit in that church and listen to Jerome Wright, they had to be a racist.
Well,
he is
well, what it is that church deals with a philosophy called Black liberation theology. And Black liberation theology basically sees the world through the lens of racism. So everything they see, they attribute it to Black suffrage, Black oppression, whether it be colonialism in Africa or the slave trade or Middle Passage here in America. It all flows to that, and that's that same mindset. And that's what he was coming from. That's the same mindset that Farrakhan comes through. And to lesser degree, a lot of Blacks feel that way, but not openly. They just have these feelings because they don't have a way of filtering in a proper worldview that actually balances out with what they really believe from a Christian standpoint. Because a lot of Black people community, we are God-fearing, and we don't believe the things that the leftists are telling us, but it's something going on there because they see racism, they feel racism, but they don't know how to attribute it. And that's where the whole walk-away struggle comes in. People, every walk-away video you hear that struggle. At some point, they thought one way, and then something happened, and then they had to reconcile with it, and they couldn't, and then they had to break away. And it took the courage to break away is what most walk-away people have to go through. And because they know that once they do that, their whole life is over. I mean, well, not over. It's changed from what it used to be. And now they're on the opposite side. Now they're on the opposite sides of their family at Thanksgiving. They're being denigrated. They're being ridiculed. They could be called Tom, Coon. It's a price to be paid to walk away. And I'm not sure a lot of people want to do that.
Well, in my family, it makes for difficult dinners if we talk about politics. You're right. Al Sharpton is proof because they should have got rid of that guy a long time ago. And he looks even creepier now that he's skinny because his head looks so big. I was a Democrat for 35 years. I was a judge of elections. I marched 3 times in Washington for pro-choice. And you're right. They do cry too much. The principles of being a winner are, if you think you're defeated, you are defeated. So why aren't we instilling motivation, hope? I think I told Alexis, I worked with a group of, they call them legally involved now. So it's people that were on parole, probation. And I had a group with them every Thursday night for an hour. I wanted them to make a 1 week goal, a 1 month goal, and a 3 month goal. It took 5 meetings for those people to come up with a goal. They're so not used to having a purpose and moving forward and thinking they could do anything. It took me forever to try to even get their brain wrapped around it. I finally said, cut out pictures of a magazine, like something to try to explain what you want or what you think you can do. And, I worked there for almost 2 years, and I probably got 3 or 4 people to change their mind. But that mindset is so ingrained that you're never going to be anywhere. You're never going to do anything. That the world is out to get you. Cops hate you. We're poor. We're always going to be poor. It's awfully difficult to get someone to look at the world differently.
So how is it that people can make it despite of that, though? Like, is it just something they have inside of them? Because some people have that same mentality, like Van Jones. I mean, he made it. I mean, he feels that way. So I think.
But Van Jones, he should look in the mirror because he made it. And by the way, Van Jones is starting to speak little things. He openly says the Republican Party is the only one that has done anything for criminal justice reform. I don't think he would ever say that white lash statement again. I don't think he would say it.
Yeah, I picked a bad example. I think I'll probably get in trouble for saying this on my channel. I'll probably lose some subscribers. But I can see where Van Jones is coming from. He is in a tough spot right now because he's having a conflict inside of him. And you know what? To a lesser degree, so was Sean King. But they just can't put the pieces together because they don't have a framework of America. And that Black liberation theology and leftist theology and all this stuff where America is the worst country ever. And by the way, I'm going to say this. I was at Gettysburg this past week. I was going to do a video on why America it was always great. All my video was out of focus. It's totally useless. I can't do it the way I want to do it. However, I will give a spoiler here. I'll do a different location and fill it in. But the reason why America, and this is actually in the video, isn't it? Where it says America is great. I think Brandon Tatum says this. That America is great because it's the idea of America is great.
He does say that. You're right.
So it was always great.
Right. People are starting to get that. That guy, he actually works in a bodega in someplace in Jersey, and his name on Instagram is Seymour Views. And he keeps coming up with ideas about globalism and what Trump's against. And I'm just like, how does this guy know all that? But he gets it. It's not about Trump. It's about America. And America is the greatest country in the world. Otherwise, people wouldn't be digging tunnels, floating on pieces of wood, hiding in shipping containers to get here. And all that we're talking about, and somebody posted the other day, right now I could go to Libya and buy a black man for $55 right now today, June 30th, 2020. What are we doing? And we're marching around about some nonsense, and nobody's addressing that. They're human beings. Have you ever seen pictures of that slave market? It's horrifying.
I'm sorry. I say the last part again. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, have you ever seen pictures of the current right now slave market in Libya?
I saw some pictures from 2008, I believe.
No, it's right now today. Right now, it's $55 to buy a slave in Libya right now.
And I think that came from the Arab Spring.
It came from what we did with Muammar Gaddafi, and once he went down, there was just mayhem in the country. We did it. Well, not us, really. Hillary Clinton.
Well, yeah. The Arab Spring, a whole era where we toppled the regimes of Gaddafi, and I think that the main one, wasn't it? And
we left
ISIS back. Too.
And ISIS, the maniacs, yeah. It was us.
So yeah, I had something I was going to say. I can't remember now.
I didn't know that Van Jones is on Mike Tyson's channel. I'll check it out. I sort of like Van Jones, and at least he's better. I like Juan Williams, but in the past year, his everything that anybody talks about, he goes, well, Donald Trump, blah, blah, blah. Like, he doesn't have an answer for anything. And I don't know how he can go on the 5 every day and still maintain his position, because it's crumbling underneath of him many times.
Juan Williams coming across as a clown, because even when they have him dead to rights, he still finds a way to.
Yes, that's what I mean. He just said something so ridiculous. I think you're embarrassing yourself, Juan.
Yeah. So I had a point here somewhere. I can't remember.
I'm sorry. I screwed you up. Oh, you were talking about Gettysburg and Brandon Tatum.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to just indulge me because, because people are seeing this for the first time. They don't know what I'm talking about. They say, well, Kyle's an idiot. He's talking about America's always great. And the reason why I'm saying that is because simply this is that America is a country that from the very foundation, the only country in the world to this date that I know of that was founded on the principle that God gives you your rights, and it can't take the rights from you because God is unbeatable, right? So you can't mess with God. So if God tells you you're good, you're good, and that's what America basically was based on. That in of itself makes America the greatest country of all time. And so, yes, slavery was in place, but it was in place because they needed a compromise to keep it together. I'm not making excuses for them, but they had every intention to kick the can down the road because they were going to get rid of it in the very beginning. It got turned down. And so they left a provision for it to be done, but evil people kept it going. So we can talk about that, but it wouldn't have been possible if it hadn't been for that idea. And you can be in China right now and have all the hope you want, but there's no chance in hell you're going to be free from China because it's not in their foundational documents. In America, you've got that chance. You have the chance to defend yourself with the Second Amendment, and you have the First Amendment to actually say what you want to say. And so don't give me this crap about America's not being great. So the issue needs to be talked about is that America was always great, and every generation must continue to make it great, because if we don't, we're going to lose it. We can't just live. We can't sit on our laurels. In other words, we have to. Every generation is going to stand up and say, "This is it." We're going to have to fight for it, and then pass it on to our next generation, and they'll have to fight for it.
And the silent majority has to start speaking up.
Oh yeah, Puffy Jones.
Yeah, Puffy. I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know. Did you see Biden today doing his news conference? It was painful to watch. Painful.
I didn't watch it. He said that he was going to help. He's willing to have a comparison with Trump for his mental stability.
Deficits. Yeah, it was not. He got mixed up. He even made a joke about dog-faced pony soldier when he couldn't think of what else to say. He couldn't draw the word out of the word bank. And he went after Trump hard. And unfortunately, you know what happens when you go after Trump hard? He's going to come back at him like a pit bull. And it's a shame. I think that if anybody loved Joe Biden, they wouldn't put him through this dog and pony show, so to speak, because he's going to get destroyed. He's going to get ripped.
What was his arguments on Trump that he was saying against him?
Oh, just that he mishandled the virus. Every other world leader is handling it properly, and it's going to kill us all. And he said, I can't remember the phrase he used, but he said he's a warrior, and he's not. He's he called him some names. Like, he went really hard after Trump, and that's all Trump needs. If you prick him, he's going to come back like an angry bear, and he's going to demolish him, and that's not going to be helpful. And also, I'm uncomfortable for Biden because it's like picking on somebody in the nursing home. He's obviously defenseless.
Well, he has his handlers tell him what to say, obviously, and he has to deliver those lines, and it's very difficult. I worked on campaigns. I was a campaign manager for candidates, and fortunately, all my candidates were really good candidates. So we sit down, talk about what we're doing. We're going to do. We're talking to the Firemen's Society. We're talking to the Women's Republican Club, whatever. So bullet point, and you give it to your candidate and just hope that they can deliver it. And so with Biden, his handlers, I'm saying, look, dude, when you get a card, don't say, "Oh, I got a call on this reporter right now." Oh, John Doe, you over there in the audience? You see
That's
that?
what he did.
And that today?
That were there. Yeah, he actually did that. How did you know that?
I saw a clip of it today.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I found out on Parler, because Parler is awesome. I'm getting awesome news.
We love Parler.
But go ahead. That's how I found out. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and then the people that were there was like the Wilmington Free Press, and like there was no ABC, no one was paying attention to this guy. Greg Kelly said it looked like an election, a high school election in the gym. There was no one there except for third string news outlets. It was awful.
Yeah. So was there any? So he also saying that he's going to do a executive order if he wins to force people to wear masks.
Good luck with that.
This statement here by Tony, end times, I've heard some things, people talking about that. I'm not going to talk about it here, but when you deal with wearing a mask and going into shop and not being able to buy food, I think about Revelation 13. I'll leave it at that.
I know. You're not doing anything like that, but I'm not accepting that right now. If it's end times, transparent. But I don't even want to get that mentality because if you follow the news and you follow anything, you're already so upset and depressed.
Yeah. I think this country needs to.
You tell them we have free will. God gave us free will. You are free to commit it, but you're also free to not commit it. So
yeah. It's just saying, man. It's like, you know, it's that worldview where we just have to have accountability of the things that we've done and understand that, you know, there's a side to that. When you do that, there's justice. So if you do something, there should be justice to help atone for that and keep the society safe. And I think right now we're losing that whole paradigm of law and order. And that's where society breaks down, you know, and that's what I'm scared about the most.
Do you think that Trump has something up his sleeve?
In terms of?
Well, he came out with a 10-year sentence if you deface a statue and things. But I sort of feel like he's not gonna settle for this. He's not gonna settle for it.
I think I saw the interview he did with Hannity. And the question was, Mr. President, what are you going to do to keep our country safe? And you know how Trump goes. He kind of like, he gets off a little tangents, whatever. And he's gotten better at getting back to the question. And he did. But basically he was saying was, all right, so first of all, you know, this is bad, horrible. Second thing is, I can't jump in here because we have governors and mayors. But then he said, at some point, I'm going to jump in. And it's like, you know, I think he's waiting. He's kind of waiting for the time when it's obviously you got to jump in. But in terms of that, I think that's what he has up on the sleeve because the American public is getting frustrated. They want law and order, but at the same time, and they're blaming the president, a lot of them are, for not doing something. But at the same time, if he does that, then they're going to call him a tyrant and overrule him. And then you have, so he's playing a balance now that I don't envy with anybody. But right now you saw yesterday, there was a guy who was not doing well mentally, we think. And he was basically, this is from Tim Pool. I'm getting this information from Tim Pool in his blog yesterday, that he was basically cast aside from his Black Lives Matter movement. And then he went off on a rampage and started shooting up the park, the square. And I guess Chop or Chaz.
Oh, he killed a reporter.
And killed the reporter. I watched the film. And it's like, you know, that's the kind of thing that's going to have to happen enough times where people are going to say enough's enough. You know, and that's when Trump can go and give the green light to go in. And I think, unfortunately, we're going to know when it happens. And it's going to be scary.
I think that, like, when they had the Chaz and everybody's like, Trump should go in, I was like, no, don't do anything. And I think he's kind of doing that on a nationwide thing. Let it burn. Let these dummies allow all this shenanigans in their city because it's going to get to the point where they're going to need help. And then Trump's going to save the day, I guess. I wouldn't waste my political capital trying to convince Minneapolis to let me come in there. I mean, he even offered to help Chicago. He offered to help them 2 years ago. He said, I'll send the National Guard in. But I see his strategy is let it all play out. Look at New York. Let New York burn. Let them burn. And then I think people will have to say, all right, I need the federal government. But what I don't want them to do is give them money. You know, Minneapolis asked for $55 million because of the riots.
That's ridiculous. Bye, Tony. Thank you for coming, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your input. So how much money was that for the how much money was that?
$55 million. Can you help me out? I'm going to need a couple dollars. $55 million.
Well, I mean, if, New York can afford it now. They cut $1 billion out of their budget.
And that's going to go right in the toilet. I can just tell you. New York. Oh, you know what they said? They're going to give the money to Neichna. We could do a whole show about Neichna, which is their public housing, and how filthy and disgusting and rat infested it is.
Is it still rent control there?
Well, I mean, public housing is public housing, but they're not fit for dogs.
Oh, it's public housing, not rent control. I got you. Yeah. Well, this comment here from Scott. He says here, this is the last weekend. I hope not. I tell you one thing: if Trump doesn't win,
we're going to Costa Rica. We're going to have to go. I don't think we're going to be able to make it because we're going to get killed. But actually, the protesters, Scott Marcoux, the protesters in New York said even if the budget passes with the $1 billion, They're not leaving because they have a whole nother list. That's what the head of the protest said in New York City.
Say what? Another list?
He has a whole list of things that he demands change.
So basically, there's no end to this.
There is no end to it. And you and I both know it's not even real.
Right.
It's manufactured.
Right. Yep. So, there's a video I did on the White Guild, and I talks about that, where there is no end game to this. It's just perpetual complaining, perpetual
and confusion, and Soros-backed Antifa. I mean, they're trying to listen. You know that old expression about when you're trying to dig somebody's grave, you better dig two holes, one for yourself. So they're trying to dig Trump's grave, and I think they're going to, like DJ Khaled says, congratulations, you played yourself. Because so far, everything they've tried to do to Trump has given him more strength and power, really. They can't beat him.
Yeah, even now with the polling now, I did a video on the polling. The polling is so inaccurate right now.
I don't know why anybody pays any attention to it. It's a joke.
And I give documentation for it too. I'm gonna do another video on that as well as the polls are coming. But the way they're scoring the polls just don't make any sense. They're oversampling they're oversampling independents with liberal independents, and that's what's skewing the numbers.
I saw John McLaughlin talking about that tonight, and he was actually in charge of the polls for Trump's 2016, and he was pretty interesting. He was on Greg Kelly tonight.
What do you say?
He explained why it was false in 2016. They're sampling the wrong people. This is all skewed. He has more reasons. He went into more depth, but he's a smart guy.
So basically, I was kind of saying, what I was saying was right. So, I pretty much know what he's saying. He's basically saying that they can't poll the Trump voter. So even if you're an honest poller, you can't find a Trump voter that's going to talk to you.
I would.
That's the problem. Yeah, but you're not really. But you're politically active though. We're talking about people who have never voted.
Right.
Who just want a lot of people just wake up on November 3rd or 4th and just say, what we got to do today? Oh, got to vote.
Yeah.
Insanity. Sorry?
I said that's insanity. Look, Alexis is right. I can't wait to see how that tax base goes because people are fleeing New York, which don't forget, by the way, Thursday night, 2 of the fleers are coming here. One of your number one fans, Joe Liotta, and his wife, don't forget. But people are fleeing New York in record numbers. And especially, we know the wealthy people have changed, just like Trump did and made Florida his home state, either Texas or Florida. That's what everybody's doing. He's not going to have, you can't get blood out of a stone. He's not going to have anybody to raise these taxes on.
Yeah, it's just, and unfortunately, the ones that can afford to move are the ones that, I guess I have a point there. I'm talking about the rich, particularly like the people in Hollywood, whatever. They can afford to move where they want to move. They can screw up their area, their communities, whatever, and they can just move. People in Minneapolis. I'm sure the people who play for the Vikings. I'm sure a lot of those guys can just move.
Their houses are not on fire. They didn't get burned.
Yeah. So and who are the ones who are going to suffer? It's always the ones.
Poor people.
Yeah, it's going to be the people that you're defending. Supposedly, it's been
or the middle and the lower middle class. They get really squeezed because they don't get handouts and they have to work. And the gentrification in New York is actually squeezing out all the lower to middle class anyway, and the poor people. Well, the problem in New York is nobody votes except for 1/5 of the Democratic base, and Republicans never vote in New York.
What about upstate New York?
I think upstate New York actually, a lot of those counties went for Trump. Even Suffolk County on Long Island, which is the eastern half, they went for Trump. Suffolk County was Trump.
Yeah.
New York City.
But they just can't overcome those
the numbers in New York City.
I think it's only like 4 or 5 counties in the entire United States where it caused enough votes for Hillary to get the popular vote. So.
And they were New York City related and California, Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And that's when they did in 2018 with the Act Blue, that PAC that's, I don't want to be sued for libel here. It's suspected to be funded by Soros. But all of a sudden, in the last 2 months, they got billions of dollars going to local candidates.
Because of Black Lives Matter.
And to flip the House, all they had to do was get about 20 seats in California to flip the Congress.
Listen, I'm going broke with my $5 and $10 and $20 donations to all these people because I couldn't take it. If honestly, I'm a Christian person. If Nancy Pelosi doesn't have like a lightning bolt from Jesus to change her heart, then I think she needs to go on and lay down because I can't take her too much more. She is evil personified.
I think Pelosi and Schumer, those guys, Pelosi is they just been playing this game for so long, and now they're just having to sell out every single principle that they've ever stood up for.
If they ever had it. And you know what else? Even before Trump, every Sunday night Schumer would have a press conference. And like whatever happened, and it was so annoying because he do a press conference, I'm coming out against murder. I believe in this country, no one should murder anybody. And we're like, shut up, Schumer. Like he would come out, speak on something that isn't even a question, and he'd do a big news conference, and the news would play it every single Sunday night. Like he's sick. I also give not a lot of money, but frequent donations to what's it called? The Convention of States, because I want to get term limit. And actually, I think on both sides of the aisle, that would be a unifying thing because I know a lot of liberals that feel the same way as I do. We must have term limits. Good night, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
We're putting everybody to bed.
Yeah. I really appreciate your input. We'll do it again. Hopefully, I can do it better planning. But this was kind of spontaneous. So.
No, it was fun. And next time we get Alexis on there because I know she has a lot to say.
Yeah. So since we're putting everybody to sleep, you wanna call it or you wanna?
Yeah, we'll call it. So have a happy 4th of July, everybody, and we have a lot more to talk about. I've been watching Dave Rubin and Larry Elder and Candace and Jordan Peterson all week.
Yeah, I could do a show on any one of those guys.
I love them all. So interesting.
Yeah, I think Candace Owens, I'll just say this real quickly. She's getting such a bad rap, man. I mean, from a lot of them from her conservatives are saying they don't like her because they feel she's this and that. I'm like, come on, man. Seriously?
She's young. She's going to be seasoned. Her heart's in the right place. Yeah. She's just, the angry young man is a prototype that everybody understands and knows. Good night, Matt. But she's the angry young woman, but she'll get better.
Yeah, I just she was a Democrat 3 years ago. She was doing TED Talks, 3 years ago. And her life was different. And her story is unique. And she's getting more. I watched her interview with Lamont yesterday, and she's gotten a lot better at interviews. I mean, she's becoming dangerous from a liberal standpoint. I mean, she's becoming she's educated, but she's been able to say things that's more nuanced than before. It's not just the talking points. She's going below point A, point B. She's getting deeper in the points. So obviously, her relationship with Larry Elder is paying off because she is really becoming an intellectual, and that's going to be. You add that intellectualism along with her feistiness.
Right, that's what you need. Well, actually, Thomas Sowell, when he was young, he was much more fiery than he is now.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
But it was accepted because it was a dude. But maybe Candace needs like a Carol Swain mentor because I think that Carol Swain is so powerful. When you have somebody she's like the female Larry Elder in that she's calm, cool, and collected, speaking powerful words. And those people get my attention all the time.
She reminds me of my mom and of that generation, my godmother, and just Black women of distinction.
I love them. I love them.
They just like, it's just you don't want to mess with them, man. It's like,
and then compare Carol Swain with like a Hillary with the screeching and the the raw and the uncouth and the vulgar. And Carol Swain is so dignified. She's like a queen.
Yeah, I felt bad for her too, because one of the reasons why I had a problem with the Republican Party, I'll go and put some digs on the GOP here now, because they have a hard time with the outreach thing, and the movie talks about that, and it's just like the Republican Party has bought into the narrative that the Black people don't want to vote for them either, and that they're hopeless. I mean, hopeless in terms of not hopeless as people, but hopeless in terms of getting their vote. And why try when we can go through our traditional metrics of,
Well, That's why we need people that Black Republicans, quite frankly, young Black Republicans, like at least 5 or 6 of them in the movie. Some I knew, some I didn't know. Damiani Felder. I've seen him before. Actually, I wrote their names down, but this is what you need to go to for reaching out. And I think Carol Swain was exactly right to put her office where she did. And we got to imitate it. The Republicans.
Yes, she was.
The Republican idea of forget about it, they're never going to like us, that's defeatist. That's not going to work. And it's come to a time where you can't ignore it anymore. They better do something more because things are getting hot.
Because the demographics are changing so much that with the Latino vote and the white population not being as getting older, it's very difficult for Republicans now to win elections without a higher percentage of the minority vote.
Alexis, that's a good line. Your leg is not better than your arm. They do. You're right. And they can all reach out. And those, the couple of the guys that I really didn't know at all, Stephen Broden, somebody's last name was Maxwell, Joel Patrick. I don't really know those guys, but I think that those are the kind of people we need. And the guy, the guy from Turning Point, he's on Fox sometimes, tall Black guy. Do you know him?
Yeah, it's dark skin.
Yeah, and also
Rob Smith.
Right, Rob Smith. And then another guy that's on Fox all the time who's kind of funny. He's on the 5 sometimes, a younger Black gentleman. It'll come to me in a minute, but he's great.
There was a rapper on there.
Who?
There's a rapper there's a rapper in there that was that's been on the show that was on the movie. And I was trying to get him to an interview, but we haven't hooked up yet. But he was in the movie as well, briefly. I'm trying to find his name, but he was young. He's like a hip hop guy. He does like.
He was in the movie. Lawrence Jones is the guy I'm thinking of. Lawrence Jones. I like him.
Okay.
You know him? He's great.
No, I don't. But Joel Patrick is awesome though. He does stuff with like
Charles Payne,
Alex Jones channel with like a millennia. I'm sorry.
I said Charles Payne. I'm kind of joking though because he's like an older. Do you know Charles Payne?
No.
Oh, he's a financial.
No,
he's
I know.
Fox all the time too, but he's a Black gentleman, but he's older, like my range.
Was he the bald-headed guy?
No, I think he has. I think actually his hair is getting a little white now.
Then you had Jesse Lee Pearson.
He's a lot of financial stuff for them.
Well, Jesse Lee Pearson, I've known him for several years now. He's
Oh yeah,
he's
you know what?
These guys on the show.
He's a bald-headed guy. I thought he has like a little.
I thought so. Yeah.
Bald-headed.
Yeah. So I agree. I mean, it takes and Kingface is each one of those people can get can talk to a different demographic, and so I think Rob Smith's gay. I'm pretty sure he's gay, and you have Kingface. He's Kingface, right? And you have Candace Owens.
Uncle Patel,
right.
The guy that called him said they call him Uncle Patel, and the Indian gentleman.
Yes.
Last name is Burr.
I need to watch it again, actually.
See? I have to write the names down and then I have to go back and look stuff up. I just want to say one thing about this before we end this broadcast. 2 things about that movie where I got emotional. I'll tell you the bad one first. When they talk about who's the guy that's the head of HUD?
Ben Carson.
Yeah. When they show the part about him, and that, I'm sorry to say it, that piece of crap a-hole, Trevor Howard, who at one point I thought he was kind of funny, the comedian, and he's making fun of Ben Carson about the ghetto and all that. It was so disrespectful.
Yeah, it was.
And then they all started bullying him because of the way he speaks. What is that? You know what Trump said about Mike Pompeo and the jockstrap, right? None of those guys had the right. They couldn't carry Ben Carson's books. Do you know what I'm saying? Ben Carson is an amazing human being, brilliant man. And for them to make fun of him and bully him, it broke my heart. It really did. So that was one thing. And the other thing is when Candace Owen walks out in front of all those black kids at the White House, and she's like, oh my God, this is a beautiful thing. Like, I got choked up because it is. Look, I just got goosebumps talking about it. That is so amazing. All those kids, teens at the White House with Candace Owen speaking to them. Like, that's the sign. That's the new world, man. It's going to be, it was emotional for me. And I think it's very momentous.
Well, I got emotional too. And I got emotional on the bad part because part of the reason why I walked away was because I grew up in DC area. I would go into DC every morning to work at the Federal Trade Commission. I worked all over odds and ends during my time coming up. But we would cut through the inner city through Alabama Avenue, through Southern Avenue, Southeast DC on our way up through Berry Farms to go into DC. And on that way, I would see liquor store, church. I'd see at 7 o'clock in the morning, black people standing out in the middle of the street, on the curb with a brown bag, drinking alcohol. And as a 20-year-old thinking about this and being more conscious, because I was coming from a black university, I was part of a black fraternity, African fraternity. I was really into that whole movement, that whole thingy. I was like wanting to make a change in life, whatever. And I was just frustrated at what I was seeing. And so when I watched the movie, and I saw how close we came. We had Obama becoming president, who I didn't vote for, only by a small margin. I voted for McCain because I knew who Obama was because of that Reverend White deal and some other things I read in his book. So even though I wanted to vote for him, I just couldn't
do it.
And so, but when I saw what could have happened out of a Obama presidency, we could have been there. He could have closed the door on everything.
This close.
And I could have been a Democrat right now because if he could have done what he's supposed to have done, and from my worldview, which he wouldn't have because he's a leftist, whatever. But I could conceivably, never been a Republican, and so or gone back on whatever and just been independent. And so that frustrated me because I realized now we're worse off than we were before. Because if you go back into the Reconstruction era when Lincoln was assassinated, then you had the whole South putting forth together the Jim Crow era, KKK, and all that stuff, poll taxes, segregation, and all that stuff. The Republican Party was there. They were lynching white people and blacks, coming down, trying to make a better South. And then you had the Black Wall Street, which they would all want to talk about in 1921. That got burned to the ground by Democrats. And then you had lynchings. And then you had the Civil Rights Act, the Voters' Rights Act. All that stuff came only because they repealed the 14th and 15th Amendment. We had everything when they passed 13 and 14 and 15. That was it. Everything on the books was there. But what happened was when Reconstruction came in, they repealed all that stuff, all of it. So that's why we needed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 because of that reason. And that's what pisses me off is because when Obama came in, he had a chance to, in a way, bring this country together and then realize, hey, when he said that black people need to be more accountable, he said that one time, I think, when his first couple of years in office, I thought we had a chance, but then it went downhill from there. And that's when I realized in the film where I got emotional, realizing that we just screwed the whole thing up because we went with a sheep in wolf's clothing. No, wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, wolf in sheep's clothing. Well, you know what, though? I feel like when he came in, he was a little bit different, maybe. I don't think he was as bad and as divisive and as left as he turned out to be. It seemed like he was more reasonable. He's the one that said that slaves were immigrants that came without their permission. He said it 11 times. And then when Dr. Carson said it, they destroyed him. He said that he talked about the problem of fatherlessness. That whole speech about where the Moses generation brought us 90% of the way and where the Joshua generation. I mean, he said a lot of things, which I thought he believed, but he just seemed to flip over. And once he flipped, it was like a snowball. He just kept getting worse and worse. And the day I really hated him was the day he said that Trayvon could have been his son. Because first of all, with the money that you and your wife have, and you're both of significant education, it wouldn't be your son, it'd be mine. A single white mom with not a lot of money, working woman, worked 2 jobs, My kids will be the one running around with the hoodie on, not your kids, buddy. And that's what gets me so mad about color. Like, it's not about the color. It's about the activity. And by the way, why isn't Obama, he's half white. Why do we always say, like, why is he black? Why can't he be white? I don't understand that.
I found that trap too. Yeah.
All right, friend.
Well, Bill Clinton's more black than I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
What?
Oh boy, Bill Clinton's the first black president, right?
That's what you used to say, but I wouldn't take, if I was on that team, I would not take him on my team.
No, that's a highly offensive statement, by the way. So
everybody thought it was hilarious at the time.
Yeah.
One last thing. I did see where Camille Cosby came out and said that it was systemic racism that put Bill Cosby in jail.
Camille
Cosby.
Why you got to start with that? It's not Camille, it's Camille. Oh boy, Bill Cosby. That's a topic.
Yeah, that, you know what? We could do a whole show about that, because I'm not like 100% that he was 100% wrong. I mean, those women went there. They knew he was married. Come to my hotel room at midnight, and he answers the door naked with a bathrobe on. And you thought you were going to like run lines? Like, come on. Women, I hate that. I don't even want to start this. It's too late. But women are not dumb idiots. They know what's going on. And to say, like, I had no idea. I saw him put a pill in my drink, and then I just laid down. Like, what? Come on. That makes us look like we're like children that can be easily bamboozled. By, you know, like, come on. You have a brain. You have free will. That's a whole nother show.
You know, I'll leave it at this. Billy Graham, the late Billy Graham, he had such high principles when it came to women in his ministry or whatever. He wouldn't be alone with another woman ever. If it was an elevator, he would not go in the elevator with them by himself. He just wouldn't do it. He had such a high standard. So I don't know. I think.
So Bill Cosby was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
But Mike Pence won't be alone with women either.
Who's that?
Mike Pence. They make a lot of fun of him. He won't.
They make fun of him. They make fun of them for that. But if something would happen to him, they'd be all over him. You know. Or I like the picture of Keanu Reeves. We have the picture of these two beautiful women next to him. He's holding him like this, but he's not touching him. You see that picture? Okay. Smart dude, man.
Yeah, I like, you know.
So anyway, and we've gone for an hour and a half. This is the longest we've ever been on a live stream.
Oh, really?
This was non-political votes coming in type of thing.
Well, let's see how many views you get. You might get a lot of views for the first 30 minutes and then none for the second hour. But it was really fun.
Well, we have 4 on now. I'm curious how many unique viewers we had. We may have about 30 or 40 unique viewers. We'll see.
All right. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay. Good night.
All right. Well, Jackie, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Yep. See ya.
Bye.
Okay, so that's it in our live stream. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is a last minute deal. I'm glad you guys could tune in. And thank you so much for the, I want to make sure I say this again. Very generous donation from Kyle Thompson. Thank you so much for giving us $20. It's awesome. And we'll be put to good use for more content like this. And I want to say, if you guys like what we do here in this channel, where we take culture, TV, and movies, and we filter it right, please click the like and subscribe button and hit that bell icon. And please share with your friends. What we're trying to do here, we're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, because at that point, we can make a real difference and hopefully impact elections and get more Republicans or conservatives. Not really Republicans, because I'm not really even about that Republican thing. You know, I don't really care what your party is. As long as you love America and you want to do what's right in terms of the Constitution, and in terms of limiting government, in terms of keeping freedom of speech intact, keeping the Second Amendment intact. I don't care what your affiliation is. We need more people like that. Right now, this country is getting to the point now it's becoming not Democrat or Republican. It's becoming America and not America. And it's coming tyranny versus freedom. And it's really, really getting to the point now where the rubber is meeting the road. Every person's going to have to play their part. You don't have to get in the street and, you know, hold a sign up or we're not even asking you to call representatives. If it's just as much as telling your neighbor, hey, you want to go vote today, or telling a neighbor, hey, do you realize that this policy means this to you? Do you realize that if this thing gets passed, that you're not going to have this much in your taxes to do this? Framing arguments at even the smallest level, getting people engaged to know that every election matters. Saying, hey, you do realize that had we voted for Pat McCrory in North Carolina, then we wouldn't have the situation with these situations here in North Carolina. Or if we had this mayor in, I'm trying to think of another state, but if we had a Republican mayor at where we are now, where we didn't get him in last time, things could be different now, to the point that elections do matter. And that's the kind of impact that we could all do at any level. And all of it actually adds up. So with that, I'll leave it there. And again, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you, Alexis. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. Hopefully we'll get you there next time. And again, Jackie, thank you so much for your input. Looking forward to hanging out with you again. And with that, everyone, I will take you and thank you for a good evening. And I will talk to you guys next time.